All right, the Colorado Avalanche lose game 1, but then win the next 4 to advance to the second round in the Stanley Cup playoffs. How did they do it? Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche, Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, LockedOnAvalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you are subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, sir, I think the topic of conversation today is a pretty simple one. The Colorado Avalanche have moved on to round 2 after rattling off 4 straight wins against the Winnipeg Jets. And that's how fluky and funky and unpredictable this sport and this sport's playoffs can be from one year to the next. Because last year, not to bring up bad news, but the Avalanche, in a series that many people thought they would kind of just roll over the Seattle Kraken, that goes the distance. This year, a series a lot of people think is going to go the distance, and the Avs just roll over the Winnipeg Jets. I got to say, I did not see this coming, but it just, every game was a carbon copy of the one before it. And the Avalanche finish off the Jets, and they win this series. They win the series 4-1. I don't think many people, when they're doing their brackets on the NHL website, I don't think many people had the Avalanche winning it in 5 games.
And advancing into round 2, it's easy to forget the road coming into the playoffs, because that would have easily skewed things to project a 7-game series.
Yeah.
The Avs were not playing great. And this Avalanche team now, I mean, honestly, with the exception, because they shored things up and cleaned things up when it came to turnovers and passing and defense in game 2 on. Honestly, if they would have just kept the same effort, this might have been a sweep, because they played the same game and the same style except for defense. Game 1, it was a little loose. They were giving up bad turnovers. Yeah. It was just, but everything else has been exactly the same. And this would have been a much shorter series. And imagine the rest, especially with that Dallas Vegas series doing what it's doing. This team would be healing up. And we mentioned in yesterday's episode, this game could get chippy. It did. You can rest those bruises. And but it's an incredible feat that the Avalanche did, and they flipped the switch. And you talked about the Seattle series. This is a complete team effort this year, and the absence of Nichushkin was felt very loud when you see what a playoff team when Nichushkin looks like this year compared to last year.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the series as a whole towards the end of the episode, and just exactly how the Avalanche went about doing this. But to really start things off, let's focus in on this game, game 5. You go back to Winnipeg, tough place to play. And like we said in yesterday's episode, Winnipeg just, they're in the mindset of like just one game at a time, one period at a time. And we were saying you're going to see everything that they have. And I think we did, Kyle. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best that they could have done. They're just running into an Avalanche team that just had a great game plan against them and played it game after game after game. And for this one, it was more of the same. And even though the Jets got the first goal on a fluky goal, but hey, that crowd doesn't care. Puck went into the Avalanche net. That's all they care about. It was Josh Manson trying to clear the puck, just goes right off of Turkey Lehkonen and back into the goal. And there you go. I didn't feel like, oh no, like that's gonna be the difference in this game, and Connor Hellebuyck's gonna shut you down. He didn't do it the entire series. And what happens minutes later? Valnichuskin gets equalizer, who, if we're picking an MVP for just this series, it's got to be Valnichuskin, if you ask me.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think honestly, the storyline walking out of this, especially in this game, is the play of Alexander Georgiev. And we talked about coming in this season, how shaky things looked. And in game one, how shaky things looked. This team rallied around Georgiev and giving up a one-shot, one own goal. That's a new one.
That's a new one.
For Georgiev to not just respond, but he was incredible the entire game. And for it stepping back, going into the next round, you look back, Alexander Georgiev just defeated Connor Hellebuck in a playoff series. How does that? If you would have mentioned this a couple weeks ago, a month or two ago, I would have laughed. And that's what happened. And it was incredible. And the effort from not just Nichushkin, who has been stellar, but you had Mikko show up, you had Trennan of all.
Oh man,
When they
let's talk about. Well, let's talk. You mentioned Georgiev first. Let's talk about him, because the turnaround is not something that needs to be. I said, Nichushkin is probably their MVP for this first round. You could easily make an argument that it is Alexander Georgiev. And wow, like after game one, I don't think anybody had that on anybody's radar. He, with a combination of Avalanche playing much better defensively, he stepped it up. And in this game, he needed to. I think, they had, where's my stat sheet here? They had 36 shots on goal. So he had to work for it this game. In the other games, he still had to make some saves, don't get me wrong. But the Avs were clamping down on defense, especially in the third period. We talked about that in previous episodes. What was it? 3 shots on goal in one game, 5 shots on goal in another game in just the third period. This one, they got a few more towards the end. They pulled the goalie. I think they got a few during that time frame. I think they had 11 in the third period for this game. So he was tested a little bit more in this game. So you got a little bit of both. You got the Georgiev, who just needed to simply play better, and the Avs helped him out with playing much better defense. And in this game came up with big saves, and they were throwing a ton of shots on him. He did have the one that he let go right by. I wish he had that one back. Clear line of sight. So he wasn't being blocked or anything like that, and it got by him. Okay, but how many times in the past have we seen that get to him? And then it's just the wheels fall off. But it didn't happen. So you had an own goal, that goal. They tack on another one, but he was great. He was great. You have to give him credit for a massive turnaround, not just from game one, from the end of the regular season leading into this playoffs. He's your MVP 2, or 1A, if you want to say, for this series.
And it's the quality of saves. Like you mentioned, that one that went by him. A lot of those shots that Winnipeg were amassing throughout the game, it was second chance, third chance, and he was stacked the entire time. He was in the right positions. Like in game one and a couple of those in like game two, he would make that initial save and then lock up he was loading like a PlayStation 1 game. Like he would just lock up, and then that's when you get a second chance goal. But in game 5, he was locked down. He had the pads where they needed to be, and he would freeze the puck at the right time. There was not a lot of trapezoid play, although initially on that first own goal, that's where it started. He's calm, he's collected, and he's confident, and that's what you want going into the next round. But Georgiev, night and day turnaround, and the defense believes in him too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's they've always had his back, it seems like. They just needed him to play better. He's done that. So you feel so good right now about how everything is going for the Avalanche. And you mentioned Mikko Rantanen too. Welcome to the party, Mikko. 2 goals on the night, 2 and big ones, obviously. That last one remember how we were saying like him and Nathan MacKinnon just play off each other? And that was a break. I want to say it was an odd man break. Maybe it was a 2-on-2 break. And that's just Nathan MacKinnon just being so difficult to play defense against, especially when he has a head of steam and he holds onto the puck for just a split second longer, wraps it around whatever defender was trying to do. I think he was on doing a belly flop trying to stop it. And it was just a perfect pass. Like everything about the team right now is just seems like it's perfect. That pass to Mikko Rantanen was perfect. The pass to Val Nichushkin to get the Avs first goal, all that passing leading up to that was perfect. The shot from Val Nichushkin was perfect. I have nothing like negative to say right now, except for small nitpicky things, which we're not going to lose this game for this team or this series. They're looking really good right now. It's crazy. They're looking awesome right now.
And that's one of the positives. Like, yes, it was a chippy game. You survived Game 5 without any. We'll see what happens with Zach Parise and Cale Makar as well when they wake up tomorrow. But you walked out relatively unscathed. But then you have all this rest, and with how incredibly precise and just like a complete unit this team is playing right now, you hope they can just flip the switch again in round 2 and get right back to business.
Yeah. Ross Colton too. He took a bad cross check right in the ribs. So, but that was a little bit earlier in the game, and he came back and played the rest of the game. But that's one of those things. You wake up tomorrow morning and it ain't feeling too good. So rest is going to be needed for a few of these guys. So more to talk about with this game. You mentioned Trenin. Got to talk about him. Wow, he was fantastic. So lots more to get to with this game, and then just the series in general. How the Avalanche did this. How they took a series that a lot of people thought was gonna go 7 games. Made it a 5-game series. So we'll talk about all of that coming up next. All right, first, let's hear from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, which we call
the Nathan McKinnon trilogy.
You saw it on display. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Also brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. It's an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So once again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Depth, Kyle. Depth comes into play again. Excuse me. Another talking point from last year in the Seattle series, which the Avs just got next to nothing from their depth players, to fast forward a year later, and the depth was as much of an impact, maybe even more so, than your top line and your top 6, if you want to say. And it had to be because Winnipeg is a deep team. So you needed to match them, not just here and there and maybe for a game. It needed to be all in every game. And I think Trenin and Cogliano. I thought Cogliano was kind of an unsung hero here. He didn't really get talked about a ton. But I mean, you're always going to get 110% from him. But I thought Trenin he led the way for this depth unit. He was everywhere. He's everywhere. And Winnipeg, they like to throw their bodies around. It's kind of why they brought him in, to kind of be that guy on the forward lines, because they don't have a lot of guys like him.
What you get out of Trenin, all the trade deadline pickups, Sean Walker, Duhaime, honestly, the acquisition of Zach Parise. You want to talk about depth. This team, like when Joel Kiviranta is out, it's you know what he brings. Like this is we're talking about the like third and fourth line, which in the playoffs usually don't get talked about that much unless you're Vegas. But this team is filthy stacked. And I'm not going to use grandiose verbiage about all time and better than 22 like that team, but I love the makeup of this team because they're not just deep, but they know how to work with each other. And it's just such a fresh, it's a brand new, when you see those new numbers hit the ice, you know what kind of attitude you're going to get in those lines and how they work with their D partners. It's incredible to see, and I can't wait to see it tested in the upcoming rounds. But what they got in this Winnipeg series, it's why you're advancing so quickly because of the depth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's not like your top guys were just going off, with the exception of Cale Makar, who's another guy you could say is the MVP of this first round if you wanted to throw him in there too. Cale Makar was a man possessed in this series. He's, and he had bumps and bruises, so it'd be, it's nice for him to have a few days off. But the depth guys, he never felt like, let's just get to the top lines. Let's they're out there now. Just don't screw anything up for your 30 seconds or whatever it may be. And let's just get to, no, when those guys were out there, it was like, all right, let's get to work. Let's turn the tide here. And you saw that's like Winnipeg, understandably so, like every team does, tries to tilt the ice in their favor. And there were moments that they did. They got that goal in the third, the one that I didn't like that Mikko didn't save. And when you're on their ice and they score a tying goal in the third period, it's just, you got to stamp that down and be like, all right, let's get back to work, not feed into the moment, not let the crowd take you out of it. But this team is so seasoned that they don't let that affect them. They don't care where they play, where it is, how loud the crowd is. They just get back to work. And I think in another team, I don't want to say who it is. I'm not thinking, a team that's not in the playoffs, that doesn't have the makeup of the Avalanche or other playoff teams would just let that affect them. And you saw like they just got back to work. And even shots, going back to Georgiev quick, there were so many shots that you've watched him over the course of the season that you've seen him give up. And a lot of times they're just those wrist shots from the blue line that just, they don't even have to get tipped.
Yeah.
You say it all the time, like he just doesn't seem to be tracking it well. He was doing that. I was, my hands were getting like I was going into like tight fist when they take that shot. Just like, oh man, just don't make the tickle the twine. And it didn't. So things are going the way that you want them to go for the Avs. Are doing everything that they should be doing. I also saw a lot of people, for some reason, not so happy with Miles Wood. I know he took a stupid penalty. That's how he plays. And it's almost like you have to accept that. And if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you, because he's going to be signed a 6-year deal. He's going to be here for a while unless they trade him. I think they love him. I think they love he's kind of like a Nathan McKinnon bull in a china shop, but literally you don't know where he's going or what he's doing. I'm kind of okay with the way that guy plays.
And it's
not,
with Ross Colton and Miles Wood, you're picking your favorite Bash brother. Like, what both of them are going to bring. And like that, honestly, that goes back to your depth conversation. Like the fourth line and how it's constructed, if they're out there for more than, usually you have that fourth line on the ice about 40 to 60 seconds, and then you're changing it out for that top line. But if they're out there and they're pushing, they can hold for 90 seconds. They're talented enough to where that's usually a liability for other teams. They can hold, allow that first and second line to rest just a little bit more. It could exhaust their fourth line, open up a scoring chance, and it makes that first and second line more potent, where you see like the Miles Wood, because you get so amped seeing the third and fourth lines perform like that. You get out there, Miles Wood takes those dumb penalties. He's just going through, because it's nothing but adrenaline. This team's feeding off each line and what they're supplying to the other one. And yeah, Miles Wood he does his thing, but Ross Colton does too. So you got to pick which one you like, because both are doing about the same.
I like him. I just like him. I liked his, and I know a lot of people don't. And he, for some reason, it doesn't seem like he should fit with this team. But I mean, his speed does, and his effort absolutely does. Like I said before, you just have no idea what he's going to do when the puck is on his stick. No clue. He could fumble it and trip over his own shoelaces, or he could make a move that's on the basis of a Cale Makar move, and you're like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's fun to watch, if nothing else. he's fun to watch. All right, we have a few more things to get to here, and we want to talk about the series as a whole. How did the Avalanche pull this thing off in just 5 games when so many people thought this would go the distance? And we have our sound check to get to. So we'll get to that coming up next. All right, timeout. We got to talk here about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. We've been talking about this for how long now, Kyle? But I'm going to keep talking about it because it's addicting.
Yeah.
It is. What was I playing this during intermissions? Yes, I was.
I was battling you all day long.
You were. I noticed some of my properties were under the ownership of one Shaggy Von Doom. Yeah. So, but that's the fun part of it. You can just steal people's properties. You even play together and get loads and loads of money to steal other people's properties. So with Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends, like we're saying, for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel with around the boards, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults, which Kyle did to me multiple times yesterday. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or a robot pachinko machine board. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win, or rent frenzies. I call them frenemies, I should say. Yeah. There's always something fun to discover on Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now. Free on Google Play or the App Store. You won't regret it. Game on. All right, sir. So the Avs they'll rest up for a little bit, see who the next opponent will be. We talked about this game specifically, and this game, like I said earlier, is kind of like a microcosm for how this whole series went. What do you think are the main things that the Avalanche really focused in on to say, we got to do this to make sure we win this series? And then they went out and did it.
We talked about the depth for this team. And I think game 1 was one of those, it was a very aloof effort. Like, yes, the scoring was high, but going back and watching game 1, defensively, it was very aloof. The passing was just kind of everywhere, and the turnovers were a big key. And I felt like coming out of game 1, you saw how they responded to all the hate, admittedly so at the time, with Georgiev and his play, that the team rallied around him. And it was one of those, hey, this is the playoffs now. You saw Winnipeg at 100% in Winnipeg, what the worst they could throw at you. And the Avalanche felt confident that as long as we could tighten up, I think we're going to be okay. They threw the regular season out the window and they got to business and cleaning up their game and just kind of engaging in playoff mode. I feel like that was it. Getting out of that regular season mentality and just really cleaning it up and getting back to business was the game changer.
Yeah, I think they went into it thinking like, our offense is fine, but we are playing the statistically the best defense in the league. So let's just see who wins that battle. Our offense, their defense. And you hear so many times defense wins championships. Sure. And I would say it did for the Avalanche. It won them the series. Forget about game 1, but I think the Avs just said, no, our offense, we trust our offense will score goals. And they alternated 6 and 5s in this series From game 1 to game 5, they went 6-5, 6-5, 6 against, and we'll say it again, the eventual Vezina Trophy winner. They made Connor Hellebuck look normal. I don't think that's getting covered enough. Like, I really don't. Like, the other series are going on, and those are fun and those are exciting. What the Avalanche just did to Connor Hellebuck, and the best defense in the league, is, I think, being criminally underrated right now by the mass media. So I that's what I think they did. I think they went into the series say, hey, our offense is fine. Our defense needs to be better. Sure. Now here's a good test for us. Let's put our defense up against theirs, and we got to put our goalie up against their goalie to maybe be as good as him. And he was better than him. The Avalanche beat Winnipeg in all the aspects that people thought they were better than the Avalanche in.
And it's one of those, when you have Connor Hellebuck and you rely on that, think of Avalanche fans. Just think, if you could not score at all throughout this playoff series, how frustrating that would be. And then for Winnipeg to lose players like Nemestikov and Dillon for injuries, and everything that you're pushing forward, and you're getting really average play from Hellebuck. You have injuries left and right, and then Bonus talking about, we don't have pushback. They're the better team tonight. We were the better team in the regular season, but not in the playoffs. Like, every time you try and take one step forward, you're taking 2 steps back, and it's just frustration. That's the way you're going to summarize this Winnipeg Jets effort in the postseason. It was just frustration, and you saw that in a lot of the faces as the game was ticking down in its final minutes. But it's frustration that nothing was going right. Murphy's Law for the Winnipeg Jets, and on the counterpunch, everything was going right for the Colorado Avalanche, including Georgiev.
Everything. 28 goals in 5 games. I know they're an offensive team, but we're going up against that defense and that goalie. That's good no matter what. So it was, you want to keep that going. I got to be honest. Like, I thought this was going to be a struggle. And man, if the Avalanche are going to play like this, they are going to position themselves nicely to be, at least maybe playing for the Stanley Cup again. But new round, whole new opponent. Let's see what happens. But with this game, Mikko Rantanen, the 3 points, a +4. Nathan McKinnon, +3. Valenchushkin was a +3. You had Devon Toews was a +3. I thought his defense was incredible. I thought Jack Johnson had a nice defensive play. I can't remember who was coming on he was coming in the offensive zone for Winnipeg on the right-hand side and kind of just skated around to the left side. Johnson stayed with him, kept his stick down. There was a guy on the opposite end that was wide open. If that puck got through, that's a goal. And because of Jack Johnson, it didn't happen. We could just go on and on about the stuff that you liked about this game, this series, and it's really all Avs. They just had the number of the Jets, who beat them every game during the regular season. I don't think people expected this.
And for Winnipeg to be as chippy as they were, and the pressure in their home barn, and you only allow them 2 power plays, that speaks a lot for the mental fortitude of this Avalanche team and just their calm nature of just business as usual.
And I know some Jet fans will want to throw some of this on the refs. I thought the refs had a bad series as a whole. There were missed calls on both sides, left and right. So I don't think it was just, they were not favoring one team or the other. I thought both teams did not benefit from missed calls. And I thought this game was no different. So if you listen to the Jets fan in attendance, every little thing they were getting in an uproar over, and I get it. You're trying to, maybe make a call go your way due to fan reaction, but there were definitely missed calls on both sides, and I thought that was for the duration of the series. So the refs they tried to toe the line of we don't want to call everything because it's the playoffs. But then, but there's some things that you have to call because it's blatant, and other things that they would just let go. So it was tough to really kind of get a read on an umpire who you don't know his strike zone. It was kind of the refs. That was the refs for this series, if you ask me.
Yeah, that was present from game one. It went out of hand in the second period of game one and never got back to normal.
Exactly. All right. Last thing we got to get to, that is our sound check. So Kyle and I pick one song each that we think best describes the most recent game. We put these songs up on a playlist over on Spotify. Just search for LOA Soundcheck. This one is volume number 3. Go listen to volume 1 and 2 if you want. But 3 is up right now. That is live. What do you got for this one, sir? The series clinching game.
You got a lot of time before the next round, so listen to both 1 and 2.
Yes, exactly.
Where would the Colorado Avalanche be going tonight? Where are they going? They're going back to Denver.
Oh, they're going home.
Going back to Denver on a jet plane. So we're gonna go leaving on a jet plane by John Denver. I honestly, to wrap this series up, there is no bad blood with Winnipeg. Like, it was a respectful series. I appreciated the series. There was no hate. There's no walk away like this is our new rival. No, I respect the play, respect Hellebuck, bonus, top to bottom. It was a fun series. See you guys next year.
The end of game 3, that just didn't need to happen.
True. That's very true.
But true. Other than that, with division rivals and you're in playoff series against each other, there were some hits going around. But you said in the first couple of games, the Avalanche had like 100 hits after the first 2 games, which they don't do that. So they were ready for that too. That's another thing that we probably should have brought up is, the physicality for the Avalanche. They brought it up a little bit more. So I agree with you though. I think overall it was a respectable series. You really have too many guys going like head hunting. I don't think, even the one on Parise was not an intentional. He kind of just took a weird fall and the guy was going to check him anyway. And the way that he fell, he just hit his head. I don't think that was intentional at all. So no, I agree with you. I thought this was a well-played series for both these teams.
Yeah, like we still have beef with all the former playoff opponents. Just Winnipeg, I don't. It's a respectful, like, but wire to wire, it's respectful.
Yep. For me, after the way that this series played out, what do you call these? I mean, it's not a sweep.
Gentleman's sweep.
You won for gentleman's sweep. That is, yes, that's what it is. Yeah, gentleman's sweep. That's what you got. So, but the Avs, after that first game, they had what I'm going with is a song by Sleep Token. The song is Chokehold. What they had. They had the Jets just figured out, and it was up to the Jets to change and turn the tide and say we're going to play our system, and we're not going to change it unless we need to, unless you show that you can beat our system. You did in game 1, but that's just because we had poor goaltending. We turned that around. Good luck, Winnipeg. What are you going to do? And Winnipeg had no answer for it. This was the Avalanche basically with a chokehold on this series for the duration. Yeah.
Colorado Avalanche, Denver Nuggets, gentleman sweep.
Boom. Love it. Nuggets did it too. I don't really pay attention to the NBA.
Oh yeah.
They did it. I mean, I know they beat the Lakers, but I didn't know it was in that fashion. So yeah. Gotta love it. All right. Now we relax for a little while. So you will be traveling tomorrow, correct? So we will not have an episode then, but we will be back the day after. We'll get our subtext crew because I know they have a lot to say about this game. And we'll kind of look ahead to see what's next for the Avalanche in round 2, whatever we can talk about. So until then, that is going to wrap it up for today's episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys in round 2.